All right guys, so in today's video, I'm gonna be helping you take your own headshot using a tripod and a remote. So if you are a solo shooter or if you don't have somebody to help out, this video is gonna be for you. So here are the things I'm gonna cover in the video. I'm gonna be covering the gear you need, best practices, and even some suggestions on what lenses to use. And then we're gonna go over the steps and the actual process of taking your photo. And as always, if this video helps you out, then make sure to hit the like button. It really helps out the channel, so thank you. So a little over a month ago, I posted a video of me getting my family's Christmas card photos using a tripod and a remote. I didn't go into depth in that video, so I'm going to really go step by step here. Of course, I always suggest hiring your local photographer or somebody whose work you've seen either on Instagram or online somewhere. But if you're someone who's invested some money in some equipment and you've made this your hobby, this is a really good way to get some practice and some experience and really just learn something. So this looks like a pretty good spot. I'm gonna camp out here and set up. So here are the things you're gonna need. First, you're gonna need a tripod. Any tripod will do. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be the latest and greatest. My tripod is about 13 years old. It's falling apart. It still works great. The second thing you're gonna need is you're gonna need your remote. My remote is called the Canon Camera Connect app. It's a Bluetooth remote that is an app on my phone, hooks up to the camera. This isn't the only type of remote out there. The Canon Camera Connect app will obviously only work on Canon cameras. You can usually buy a cheap remote online if your camera doesn't have that functionality or an app that connects to it. Okay, so alternatively, if you don't have a remote, you can always set a 10-second timer. I've done this in the past, but it's really annoying to have to press the shutter button and then run back to your spot, take the photo, and then go back and check it out. The third thing you're gonna need is you're gonna need a place marker. Today I'm just gonna be using this little guy as a place marker. It's just a mini tripod that I have in my backpack. All right, so that's really all the equipment that you're gonna need. The next thing I'm gonna do is go through best practices and suggestions. I do suggest using the fastest lens that you have. By fastest lens, I mean lowest aperture lens that you have. Today, I'm gonna be using a 50mm 1.4. So that's just a small upgrade from the Nifty 50, but if all you have is the Nifty 50, the 50mm 1.8, then that's gonna be completely fine. You can get really good portraits with that lens. Another suggestion is to try to plan this for a time when the sun is a little bit lower in the sky, not super high up. There's a couple of reasons for that. So if the sun is 90 degrees from the ground, that's going to cast some really harsh shadows on people's faces, and it's going to be some harsh lighting that you're going to have to deal with. But if the sun's at a 45-degree angle, which the sun's right here right now, so it's a little lower. 45-degree angle is going to give you a little bit easier of a time, some nice flattering light, and it feels more natural when it casts shadows on someone's face. So another thing I suggest doing is making sure that your tripod is set right about chin to mouth level. There's a couple of reasons for this. The first thing is that this is how people see themselves in the mirror, and that's kind of what people are most comfortable with. Shooting from slightly lower can work, but it doesn't always look the most flattering. When you go too low, this will only work if you're going for a very specific style. Going too high is the same problem as going too low. If you're going for a specific style, it can work. On top of that, you'll lose your background. You'll get a lot more floor and ground in the shot. Another thing about taking photos from a high angle is that a lot of times people think this is more flattering, but because of the saturation of selfies on social media, this angle has become associated with a more amateur style of photography. So unless you're aiming for that specific style and you know exactly what you're looking for, then I would avoid going too high up on your angle. A little side note here before I go on, I always have a hard time making these kinds of videos and telling people how to do things because every single person has a different way of doing things, what they prefer to do, what they think looks good. And on this channel, I'll never say this is the exact way you're supposed to be taking photos. You have to do this a certain way because honestly, gear changes every year. Technology changes very quickly. And yes, even style changes. But there is real benefit to learning the guidelines and to learning the basics and the rules for photography. If only just so that when you do want to break those rules, you at least know why and how to break them. Okay, so here are the steps that I take. The first thing that I do is I figure out what I want the background to be and where I want to stand. And then what I do is I place my marker on that spot. Now, if you're using a fast lens with shallow depth of field, the background's not going to matter as much because it's going to get blown out. But definitely make sure to check for things that are distracting or kind of ugly in the background, and just pick your spot like that. So step 2 is you set your tripod and your camera at the general distance from where you're going to be wanting to take the picture. Now, we do fine adjustments later, but for now, just put it at the right height and the right distance. So step 3 is I set the camera to use it with the remote, and I won't use a timer because my hand is out of the frame, so I'll be using the remote in my hand. But if you're taking a photo from a little farther away and your hand's going to be in the shot and you need some time to hide the remote, then set a 2-second timer on your camera so you have time to put the remote in your pocket once you hit the shutter button. All right, step 4 is I set my focus. So now what I do is I set my marker about a foot in front of where I want to be standing. And then when I go to take a picture, make sure I'm standing about a foot behind my marker. Tilt the camera down, set the focus on my marker that I placed, and then once I'm done focusing on the marker, I tilt the camera up where I want the frame to be, and then I turn my lens to manual focus. The reason I do this is because I don't want the camera to hunt while it's taking the shot and while I'm not behind it. Sometimes the camera will focus to the back while I'm taking the shot, and then I don't even know until later, and then a bunch of shots are out of focus. And yet, this is a more old school approach to doing this because a lot of new cameras have eye autofocus and subject tracking. They don't work 100% of the time, and so I'd rather not have the camera hunt and then miss a bunch of shots. And this is only when I'm not behind the camera. When I'm behind the camera, I rely on my eye autofocus all the time. So next, I'm going to stand behind my marker about a foot. If you know anything about triangles or geometry from grade school math, then you know that the distance to the ground is going to be slightly farther than the distance to my head. I'm not going to go into depth and all that, but all you need to really know is that it's going to be about a foot. The closer you are to your camera, the greater the distance you have to step back. So if you're farther away, if you're using a telephoto lens and you're farther away from your camera, you probably only have to step behind your marker about a half foot. But because I'm close to the camera, I'm going to be stepping behind my camera about 1.5 feet actually. If you don't have anyone to help you set the focus, then the best way to do it is just to take a test shot and then take a look at the photo, and then I adjust the frame as needed, and I repeat this process until I get the frame up correct. I make sure the focus is correct. After that, it's all about posing and getting the right shot. You can do the candid, not looking at the camera. You can do the fake laugh, spotting a friend across the room, or you can do the standard business smile. Or you can do my fave, the epic look off into the distance. Okay, so that's it. Now you just go home and edit to your heart's desire. Man, there's so many freaking bugs. All right, so I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you have a different method or a different way that you take your own photos, then leave it in the comments. I always like to hear how other photographers do this kind of stuff. Either way, make sure you're subscribed because I'm gonna be doing way more of this practical stuff going forward. So also make sure to hit that like button, because if you had a like button under your face, I would hit it. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Now go out there and make something good.